Every year in Cameroon, tons of agricultural produce end up as huge heaps of garbage, grown with deep love and devotion. These fruits, vegetables, and other crops litter our streets, while the farmers continue to struggle. Many have said that agricultural transformation is the best solution to this problem. And we say Phoenix Agri-Entrepreneurship Community Program, AGREC, is the best place to start. AGREC is the most innovative and only tuition-free program in the Republic of Cameroon that takes business students and makes them food and beverage entrepreneurs. Held each year under the auspices of the Minister of Higher Education, with institutional support from the Ministries of Agriculture and Rural Development and small and medium-sized enterprises, social economy and handicrafts, AGREC has become the reference in agricultural entrepreneurship in Cameroon. Are you a holder of the advanced level certificate? Are you passionate about project management or marketing, trade sales or accountancy, or logistics and transport management or international trade? Do you aspire to become a big name in the food and beverage sector? Then register for AGREC today. Call 675-102650 or visit www.funic.co. The future is bright. The future is Funic. Your future is AGREC.
Forging a successful career path begins from your foundation, a foundation of quality and professional education. It is a weapon of transformation and a passport to the future. Kmer's credibility and years of training thousands of professionals in HND, BTech, BSc, and MBA in the schools of Business and Management Sciences, Engineering and Education, with remarkable mentorship from the University of Bamenda for the BTech and MBA and the University of Boya for the BSc program is second to none. From committed professors and lecturers in classrooms to numerous academic field trips, internships and workshops, Kmer will reform and guide you towards your success. Admissions are now open in our Boya and Douala campuses. Join us. Together, we will build a legacy.
Kmer is what it is today because of its excellent and competent teachers.
Your children Kmer will be the perfect place to gain that professionalism that you need to further your educational career.
The Higher Institute of Business Management and Technology, the University Institute for Professionals.
So good evening and welcome to today's edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are glad to have you in front of your screens to follow what we have in store for you on this edition of the program. We are going to be looking today at the crisis rocking the southwest and northwest regions, finding out who does not want the crisis solved, especially with the death toll that keeps mounting in the southwest and the northwest region. Yesterday, we know that one of the separatist fighters, who was fondly called General Ayeke, was brought down by Cameroon's military. His corpse was airlifted from Bisali in the BLM division to Kumba in Kmer division for a public show, and we are made to understand that he was not the lone person that fell yesterday. We also are in the know that last month we have persons who were equally killed at the level of Bamenda. We're going to be finding out who is responsible for the stalemate that is observed at the level of the conflict. We are going to be discussing this today with our panelists who already are in the house. Far Evis Tayong is a militant and the Minister Delegate for Communication for the CRM movement of Professor Maurice Kamto. I mean, he's the Assistant Secretary for communication. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Kumleona. Good evening to all the televiewers who are watching us right away. It's a pleasure being here today, especially when we have been on the field around the Mungo division, still perusing the corridors of malpractices with IDPs who are being, who have been suppressed or subdued with unregistered schools around that area that are extorting money from them. I think we're carrying out the investigations, and in less than no time we'll come back to that story because it was once treated here, and I think that is a precarious situation. And then when I went to the investigation, I realized that the schools that are involved in that are not even registered, because I've gone right to the offices at the divisional delegations in Mungo, in Kongsamba, and it shows that the schools are running for clandestinely. And then secondly, it shows that they are extorting money. So it means that somebody somewhere is working in connivance with what is happening on the ground, which we have to dismantle that network from here right over to Yaoundé.
Okay. Also with us is Prince Joel Mukage. He is a journalist and a regular on this program. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumlinat. Special good evening to my friend Five Isayong and the other panelists. Special good evening to those watching in the land of legendary hospitality, Boya, the head of department, Kingsley Lungalangange, and to Gibbs Bino.
We also are in the company of a Pan-Africanist in the person of Andrin Atemibako, who is here with us. Good evening, Andrin, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leonard, and I want to thank all the viewers of Media Prime at this hour watching us. Thank you very much.
Yes, before I will start discussing our topic for today with you, Prince, but something is definitely wrong with some of the principals of our secondary schools across the nation, be they in the public secondary schools or the private secondary schools.
Yes, something is definitely wrong. And I said, if you look at what is wrong in it, it is an issue that links to the existence of corruption, because no principal collects PTA without being covered by another authority. If not, it will find it moving. So when you look at it, when government schools collect PTA, private schools collect PTA, at the end of it, the students are caught in the quagmire in the entire network, and at the end of it, the parents are forced to pay. But the schools will tell you that, well, they are collecting this for this reason or that reason. We spoke sometime and asked, what a proprietor who opens a school should know that he's supposed to build his school and extend his school. Is he supposed to open a school and rely on parents to begin to give more than you extort 2.5 per student, like the case we're talking about in Plain, it becomes a worry. Now, the worst thing of it, what you see about how these principals do is that in the course of these malpractices, most of the times, it goes to the fact that they have a network. You have like PTA people, president's chair. Most of the executives, they work in collaboration. So you will discover that a no-nonsense PTA chairman will not be put in place. Because if you put a no-nonsense PTA chairman, a no-nonsense treasurer, automatically the principal will not be able to work. But when you are able to mount that network, it becomes an issue. Then another worry with some of those schools that move with the PTA is that they will tell you they want to pay teachers. Now look at the category of teachers. In the schools I went to Penja, you still don't have O and A level, and they are teaching. I mean, I don't have O and A level. I'm coming to that story very, very soon. O and A level in Penja, I'm talking about what our O and A level they don't have. And you see teachers teaching first cycle and second cycle. Now you look at it. Now they'll tell you this PTA they are collecting it to take care. But now when you bring in cheap labor, the poor students don't know that these teachers don't have O and A level as they teach in these schools. They don't know. So if you look at it, you look at the structure, you discover that in the structure has what it takes. So many things are wrong because the principals themselves, you don't find them functional like that.
Okay.
You either see a divisional delegate or a regional delegate backing them up when they are not supposed to carry out what they do. So at the end of it, people could flout the law as long as they have people who are backing them up. So I think, as I said, we'll find time and cover the topic so that we will uncover it from here right over to Yahweh, because the network must be dismantled. If not, people will be exploited for no reason with teachers without full qualification.
Okay, we use this opportunity to say good evening to you, Dr. Cheso Kingsley, the Northwest Regional Delegate for Public Health. We also are happy to note that you are watching the program. I will move over to you. Andrin Atemibako. Who do you think does not want the conflict in the Southwest and Northwest region to end?
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. I think that's a very pertinent question, which is in the mind of a lot of Cameroonians. But at the end of the day, they are it is quite obvious that not only some bodies in Cameroon that are also interested in the war as a business, because we see the chunks of monies that is being disbursed by the state in order to bring about the rule and order of law in those two regions. So you look at the individuals, like some of the government officials that have been managing the armed struggle down there to bring a stable environment for the citizens in those two regions. They also got interest, because you look at how much the government spends per day. It's at least minimum 1 billion francs to mobilize all the bees and the armies and the whatsoever to make sure that there is order at the end of the day. So people who have these kind of positions whereby money passes through their hands, I don't want to believe that they will be in the position to wish that the war comes to an end. Number two, you also have those that are selling arms. Those that are supplying the arms to not only the separatist fighters, but also those that are able to supply arms to the Cameroonian government, also are in support of the war, because if you look at the conflict, it's not being fought with sticks or with cutlass. It's being fought with guns and all kinds of modern machineries to suppress or to repress another person. So the international communities that are actually manufacturing these guns, like we saw in South Sudan, you realize that the United Nations was unable to quell down the situation in Sudan, because Russia and France had an interest there, so the United Nations could not go in. So those countries who were exporting weapons were in their interest that the war should go on, and it's the same thing I would say today in Cameroon. There are also private individuals and stakeholders, especially in the northwest and southwest, some few elites who also wish that the war should not come to an end. So at the end of the day, it still falls on the head of the common man that we will still call on the government to actually take the right procedures and actually hit the core of the problem that can actually bring about a resolution in those two regions. Otherwise, it's still going to be at the detriment of the Cameroonians, because there are two bodies, I always say, that suffers in every conflict. You have the common man and you have the state, because the state is using the resources of the nation to sustain law and order, which at the end of the day, it is still the population which will still suffer. So I think that it is, instead of you trying to take other measures that will not bring about solution, that will only waste resources and monies, at the end of the day we lose life, human resources, and not still be able to resolve the matter. I think that the Cameroonians themselves must be able to understand that the war, we should not allow this conflict to be in the interest of the international community or some few individuals who have seen it like a business. It is time whereby we should outgrow the differences and our how will I put it, the problems that we may have and that we may put on the table as we may say today, of what really is the problem that is causing peace not to return in those two regions. So I feel that if we are waiting for some international organization to come down here, it's not going to happen. This is almost the 4th year. We are entering close to the 5th year, and we have still not had any way forward. So it is time whereby we must be able to sit down and reflect and take other measures instead of keep repeating the same thing and expect to get a better result. So I think that we should be able to limit our casualty, limit the investment of money that we put in order to bring in law and order. And there's something, Mr. Liu, I also like to say here is that the Cameroonians must understand that the government in place and the military which we have today in Cameroon is there not to protect the population, is there to protect the ruling party which is in place. And that is why when the people go out to protest, the military will come out to crack down these people. So you ask yourself at the end of the day, that are these military out there to protect the civilian, to protect the population, or to protect the administration? They are there to protect the administration. And until we begin to understand that this is what democracy has done to Africa, this is how the devastating democracy has been to our society, and that's how destructive it has made us to be so divided. So, Mr. Liu, I think that we as Cameroonians at one point should be able to know really what is our problem. Our problem is not a conflict in the northwest as in the southwest, as people we might say marginalization. Our problem in Cameroon is that Cameroon is still a colony. And until Cameroon receives a sovereignty, it cannot make decisions that favors its own people. So it is a system which denies its own people, and Cameroonians must come to that understanding. Thank you.
Prince Joel, we've seen many efforts made by the Cameroon's government with objective to salvage the ongoing crisis rocking the northwest and southwest regions. Yet very little success can be reported or talked about. What is wrong?
Sure, Mr. Liu, it is very true that a lot of things have been done to ensure that the adoptions, the killings, and everything that's ongoing in the two regions of Cameroon come to an end. The viewers are not ignorant of the major national dialogue, the Bilingualism Commission, the special status. There's so many things. In fact, there have been so many things. There's even the transformation of Fcfa to Nesla with the objective to like the special common law department for English speaking
at ENAM, the creation of a common law bench at the level of the Supreme Court.
So, but now, Mr. Liu, when you look at all these things, it is very true that the things are not really that much, but at least something has been done. That's the first thing. But the question you asked, which I think is a very good one, is why the killings? It is just because one thing I discovered, Mr. Liu, you will agree with me that if you've had your eyes and your ears on the ground, you will notice that since the crisis started, one thing you must have noticed is there is an offshoot of a lot of NGOs objective to assist internally displaced persons.
Involved in humanitarian.
A lot of people, they've given rights to it, I've given this, I've given that, I've given that. And that's the first aspect. Another aspect is the fact that there are people who there are people who don't want the crisis, because these are people who apply for aid from the whites and say we want to assist a group of internally displaced persons, maybe in Douala, and these people end up having maybe 800,000 or 1 million, and the people go home with 1 tablet of sabon. We know those things. And I personally I did a report for an internally displaced person who was locked. They locked the wife in the hospital, or they detained the wife in the hospital because since she had triplets, they could not pay the bill. And I want to tell you that what came out, Mr. Liu, I was shocked. A lot of money came in less than 1 week. That guy had more than 2 million, 3 million, and somebody offered him a house. So it tells you that there are a lot of persons who are making gains from this aspect. Another aspect is the fact that, Mr. Liu, today it will be very difficult to say authoritatively who commands who, so far as the separatists are concerned. I'm saying so because at one time, let's look even at the back to school. Why a group of persons are saying our children have suffered a lot, they need to go to school. Another group is saying they should not go to school. A time will come when they'll give them good education. And still within the government, Mr. Liu, you know that a lot of posts have been created since the crisis started. The Ministry of Decentralization, where George Elanga Obam is now today, we should say that it's like an offshoot of the crisis. Because these are positions that in the previous years, it used to be Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization. So, and then now there are a lot of people, a lot of things have been created. There is a DDRs, there is somebody. So, a lot of things have been created, and a lot of persons feel that once the crisis is solved, these positions should be scrapped off. Because if the war in the Northwest and the Southwest comes to an end today, the DDR centers become invalid. It's very normal.
Okay, so you are saying that those occupying these positions will want...
I'm saying it, Mr. Liu. This is what I'm saying, that there are certain persons who have had certain positions because of the crisis. And these positions will become invalid should the crisis end. A case in point is very, very normal. There is a commission for the reconstruction of the Northwest and the Southwest. If the crisis ends and the Northwest and the Southwest is scrapped off, then Paul Tasson and Mayor John Donatus, they don't... I'm not saying that they are the ones, but I'm just saying that since the crisis started, Mr. Liu, there has been a lot of developments. Even within quarters, certain persons are making profit. We know so many persons who pose for generals for the separatists, whereas they are thieves. We've seen people who have been killed in banks. What is somebody doing in a credit union when he's supposed to be fighting and defending what he claims separation? That's the truth. So, Mr. Leo, my point is that a lot of things have happened.
Okay, many persons are making reaping benefits from the ongoing crisis, while our brothers and sisters are falling on the battleground, be they of the military and the Amazonian fighters. They all are dying while some persons are reaping benefits. But there is the major national dialogue that came from the September 30th to the 4th of October last year, giving some people hopes that maybe something was going to move towards the right direction. We are 1 year after. Seemingly it has not helped to quell down the tension. What is wrong with what came out of the major national dialogue that ended in recommendations? Is it the slow pace of the implementation of the recommendations that emanated from this major national dialogue?
For the major national dialogue, which I term it a non-event, the first issue in it is that the foundation was wrong.
Okay.
That's why you see wherever I go, when that topic comes up, I just simply use the science explanation that when you have a wrong formula, the answer must be wrong. There are no two ways. So, in the case of the major national dialogue, as they say, some of us versed with conflict resolutions had understood that the foundation was wrong because the representatives on board were not the actual representatives of those concerned with the conflict. Meaning we had indirect representatives of those involved in the conflict, while those who were directly involved, who are principally the separatist leaders and the state, were not as per se. So in the national dialogue 1 year ago, we realized that the state was the major organizer, the referee, and the player. That's why CPDM members and sympathizers, alongside with satellite parties, were equally there present. They sang songs there, and I told many persons that you can fool some people sometimes, you can't fool all the people all the time. And as a stubborn kangaroo system that we have, no matter what we say day in, day out, they only look at us and say we are singing a song. Scientific approaches with conflicts are standard. You cannot take shortcut when it comes to conflict. The steps are standard. Step number 1, principal actors involved in a conflict. Step number 2, both parties become equal at the time of the resolution. Not one person becoming upper, another person become lower. Third, in case where there is breach of trust between two parties directly involved in the conflict, what happens? A third party accepted by both parties genuinely is called upon to mediate. In that case, he becomes the mediator in the middle. Point number 4, once that comes into place, you have to get pen and writing. Those of them who are going to read, and sometimes they think that we are singing a song. If you continue, the next step is that the venue must be neutral and accepted by both parties. You cannot call a meeting and you are a principal actor and you dictate to the other actor where the meeting must hold. You have already breached these principles of conflict resolution. When you discuss both of you, if the other party seems not comfortable, the party has the right to propose to you another venue, which you two have the right to look into it. At the end of the consensus, once a level ground void of fear and known as a neutral ground is accepted, both of you could move there with a mediator in a case where both parties doubt themselves. These are steps of conflict resolution. Now, there are quite many. I don't want to be giving more lectures because Yaoundé has not paid me for that. Now, but in a nutshell, what I'm saying here is that when we look at all of this, we begin to ask ourselves now, these principles are just enumerated. Were they present at the so-called national dialogue in Yaoundé? They were completely absent because the state was the player and the referee at the same time. And that explains why we're talking about key actors. If you take the Seku who are in jail, the Naira 10, and those who are outside, they constitute. And someone, as I said sometimes on this platform, called me and asked, but the factions are many. So because they are in disarray, who can the state dialogue with? I said, no. The state is more intelligent than you and I. Now, in any faction, like in the case of South Sudan, there are more than 24 factions. You can't tell me that the state does not know which other factions to come in. And as the state is delaying, other factions have come into play, and all of them must be on the dialogue table.
Who was not invited for that, for the major national dialogue?
The issue is not who was not invited.
All of them were invited.
Mr. Leo, the issue is not who was not invited. The issue is, as per the principles I gave, was the ground level, was the ground of where the venue had to take place, was it accepted by both parties, or one man took upon himself? I've said in the principle of conflict resolution, it gets to a principle whereby both parties become equal. You consider yourself as equal. If it did not happen in South Sudan, they would not be where they are today. Because the state itself and the vice president at the beginning were seeming like this one is the state, this one is the vice president, the inferior. But when it comes to joining dialogue on conflict resolution, Mr. Leo, this principle, even those who are in international law, they know what I'm talking about. You get to a point where the state leaves the high horse, comes down, and the moment the second party sees you as listening, the conflict begins.
Okay, we are looking at concessions here, but the fact that there was a major national dialogue, that was a move by the state. What other step has the other side taken as an indication that they are also willing to wanting to see into it that this problem finds a definite solution or comes to a definite end?
Mr. Liu, that question is complicated in the sense that it is not in the hands of the Cameroonians to actually make this decision, even though they can make that decision.
Okay.
Because the conflict exists, it is because of foreign interest.
Okay.
There are external forces that have interest in in those two regions, let me put it that way. There are also external forces who are there to see that the country cessates to separate. So it is not really being influenced by Cameroonians, even though it is Cameroonians who are at the forefront fighting and killing themselves. So we must be able to understand where we are coming from and understand our common enemies. It was in 2014 we had the Boko Haram. It was in the late 2016 we had the separatist fighters that began emerging in the northwest and in the southwest to secede the country. So what am I simply trying to say? All of these things are not a coincidence. These things are things that have been pre-planned, because you realize in especially what happens around Africa. I'll give you a good example. A most recent example is what we are seeing now today in Zimbabwe. When the population got fed up with Mugabe, not looking at what Mugabe has stood for Zimbabwe for all those 2 decades he had been in power. At one point, they felt that Mugabe was their problem. Mugabe stepped down. If you look at what today is happening now in Zimbabwe, is worse than whatever took place in the days of Mugabe, when Mugabe reigned. There's almost 90% of unemployed people. There is mass poverty, and the rate of repression and how will I put it, and the military that cracks down people. As a matter of fact, people don't have any more life in Zimbabwe, and they wish that it was still Mugabe who is still ruling. So what am I simply trying to say? Because when the international community saw that Mugabe had stood to gain the sovereignty of the Zimbabweans, they felt that they could not have grip over that country because of a leader who has stood for a liberated Zimbabwe. So these are the same problems that we may be facing today in Cameroon. We saw some of the decisions that the head of state Biya took in disfavor of France. And we understood that in diplomacy, you cannot come openly and say this you don't want this and this you don't want this. I also understand that the CEMAC is also building their own currency, which they are intending to probably put into place, and they don't want it to be associated with the euro. So all I'm saying here, Mr. Liu, is that the separatist fighters will almost have little or not to actually make progress as to bring about a solution, because they have stood firm on one decision, and that decision is to separate. The question here is, that is whose idea? Because it so really baffles me, whereby people of the same origin cannot be able to find a common ground to solve a problem. So this simply means that we are having an external hand, someone who is promising them a better life on the either side at the end of the day. But it was the place of the government to understand his common enemies And when this thing began, the government was supposed to go and embrace his people and talk to his people, communicate to his people. Because at the end of the day, it's a government that is a stronger body. The separatist fighter has just a small, weak handful of people who are trying to defend their right. But at the end of the day, they are also abusing power. So me, the way I look at it more as having a Western influence over what is happening in the Northwest and in the Southwest. So it is not really in what the separatist fighters are going to do to see how they can also bring about some ways in talking with the government to resolve the problem. The problem is far-fetched from resolving itself. It's far-fetched. We still have a very long way. And that is why I am saying that, for me, in order for us to actually resolve this issue, you must be able as a government to win the confidence of your people. It is true that not every Cameroonian is going to understand where Cameroon is supposed to go to or where Cameroon is coming from, but it is the way that you are going to communicate with them. It is the way that you are going to cajole them to bring them into the light and spirit of where you want them to go to. But at the end of the day, when people begin to protest, like you see today in Belarus, the protesters are insisting that Alexander, who is the incumbent president, who rigged the election, must step down. And this is taking a nationwide protest to ask the president to step down. But here in Cameroon, we don't have that kind of force. If you have a protest, it's just a handful of people that will go out, and the military is always attacking them. So we Cameroonians must be ready for a change. Okay. And the issue, like I said before, just let me say this, the issue, like I said before, it is true that Cameroon needs a new administration, needs a new government, but Cameroonians must be able to sit down and decide and think well the kind of government or the kind of leader who next is going to lead them. And they should not rush to say Bia go or Bia come, because they will get up in the morning and it will become something that you never wish for. So that is just what I'm trying to say. Let Cameroonians be able to decide and think well on who next is going to be their president and where they want this country to go to.
Good evening to you, Kevin Edward, and to you, Sam Nico, Ephraim Te. Good evening to you, Pius Anyingwi, Che, and to all of you guys watching us via social media across the world. Prince Joel Mokage, we have elites of the Southwest and Northwest regions. We are talking about who would not want this crisis to end. Do you of these two regions have worked hard enough to, or you think like other people that some of them think that once this problem emergent, would them as representatives of the Southwest and Northwest regions from the political perspective?
Sure, Mr. Leo, before now I said that there are a lot of persons who are making gains from what is ongoing in the Northwest and the Southwest. I don't want it to end now. Talking about the elite class in the Northwest and Southwest, it's very true that we've seen a few individuals, we've seen a few persons, we've actually seen people on the field who are doing everything to ensure that the crisis comes to an end. But we should not let go of the fact that there are so many people who have become mayors, parliamentarians, simply because where they were, the other candidate or the other political party declined. And you would not expect somebody who became a mayor because he was alone, or a parliamentarian, was appointed a minister because of a crisis, to want it to end. Ending the crisis means his office comes to an end. So it is true that some persons are actually doing a lot to ensure that it comes to an end. But Mr. Leo, when you get a collective view of what the elites in the Northwest and the Southwest are actually doing, the impression that one can have is the fact that there are so many people who know when the crisis will end now. Okay. Yes, so many of them. Because, like I said, within the political class, yes, within the political class, because when there is a war, or when there is a conflict, or what is ongoing in the Northwest and the Southwest, we expected, or what I expected is a collective move from all the elites, irrespective of their political stance. But when you look at what is ongoing today in the field, when somebody goes down there to give books, pencils, or money, he does it as an individual. And on the next day, all newspapers in Cameroon, TV stations, and social media is Mr. Evis donated 50 million to his village. So, and all these things are coming because there is a crisis. before now, people used to do it, and to an extent, it went unnoticed. But now, people always, you see somebody gathers more than 30 people and gives them things. So, within the political class, Mr. Leo, there are a lot of persons who don't want this crisis to end now. When some of us do our investigations backstage, it is very, very clear that there are certain persons who are feeding very fat from the Anglophone crisis. We want to believe that those who took part in a major national dialogue, who actually assisted from the 30th of September to the 4th of October, those who were actually concerned, they didn't live with small envelopes. And these are the same persons that when they say, okay, that another dialogue, as it is being rumored, that another dialogue is being envisaged, the same faces may resurface. And that is why there are a lot of persons, even within the field of journalism, there are colleagues who have changed in such a way that their reports are somehow. There are persons who yesterday, to an extent, I will not say no people, who have just been catapulted to certain levels. And these are the same people you don't want them for the crisis to end. These are the persons that if the minister can't say they are the ones managing the press, we know those things. You don't want a guy who used to manage his small 100,000, who today, because of the crisis, when a minister is going somewhere else to manage 2 million for the press. You don't expect that the crisis will end now. Because if the crisis ends, it means that the story has ended. So generally, Mr. Leo, for the crisis in the Northwest and the Southwest, we've always said it, like my brother Fcfa said, the crisis will be a bit difficult to end because, like he said, the approach has been taken is not the best. And a majority of those who have been appointed, Mr. Leo, look at so many persons who have taken positions after the crisis. A majority, if not all, are those whose stands were critical on the Anglophones. There are never those who have ever even believed that there is anything called an Anglophone problem. There are those who have gone on so many media platforms and the thing is Anglophone doesn't have, or there is nothing like an Anglophone problem. When people say things that maybe are not correct, that are not constitutionally correct, and the next day they are giving positions, what do you expect from them? That they should accept that there's an Anglophone problem, they should never accept, so that they keep maintaining their offices. And now on the other hand, Mr. Leo, there is now a group of persons who were not known before now. Let me give a case in point. How many persons of French expression knew Tapang Ivo? Chris Anu. These are persons, it's true they existed and they were already doing big things. But now the crisis has come and made so many people celebrities. Even within the profession, there are those, because of the crisis, who are no longer in Cameroon, are out of Cameroon. So the crisis has, to me, the Anglophone crisis, it is true, persons are dying every day. But a few persons, because of the crisis, have been catapulted to very high positions. And these are the same persons who will not want the crisis to end now. If not, Far said something that it's true the ground was not leveled. But at least persons were invited for the dialogue. It is very true that when you look at what a dialogue should look like, it is true that what happened in Yaoundé did not meet the expression. But at least so many persons were there. But the question we're asking ourselves, 1 year after the major national dialogue, since we're in October, because it ended in October, 1 year after the major national dialogue, why are we not seeing the fruit?
Okay.
Why is it that schools are still not? It means that something is wrong somewhere.
Something is not right somewhere. Okay, this one says, the simple fact is that I want the crisis to end. Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. I am eager to watch and listen to the Honorable MP as seen on Facebook. I hope she has not escaped the debate. Divine is writing from Bamenda. We are still expecting the arrival of Honorable Douala Malisa Bell. This one says, Mr. Liu, check your WhatsApp for the poem. It has succeeded in posting through. Okay, I say good evening, Mr. Liu. Glad you are there, always poking and pricking our consciences. Thank you very much. Greetings. Liu and panelists said the Grand National Dialogue was a great attempt in futility, but it lacked the legitimacy, genuineness, and the will to solve the Anglophone problem. Reasons why nothing has changed apart from more killings and destructions in the Anglophone communities. Che Socrates, writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your program. Truly, the government has never had the interest to solve the civil war in southern Cameroon. N.E. Metuge, writing from Tombel. Good evening. So many persons from top to bottom do not want the crisis to end. Families and friends living in major towns where there are functional schools are enjoying the financial and material support they get from parents of the IDP kids who have come to stay with them and attend school. Landlords in those towns don't want the crisis to end. The house rents have been quadrupled. In fact, it's a cycle. Restaurant owners not left out because the demand for food has tripled. The list is unending. Frank is writing from Limbe. Good evening to you, Frank. This one says, tell Atem Bako to love us, to leave us alone. Tambe is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Keep up, Eboa. Rene is writing from Kumba. Mr. Kum, your program is always splendid. Special greetings to Joel. And where is my man Travis? Talk for Joel. Say make he no take money for government. From Mwalimu Lantum Jude in Bamenda. Okay. You see, elites have not worked so hard to see into it that these problems are solved. What about the efforts made so far by traditional rulers in the southwest and northwest regions? Have they engaged the government enough to wanting to see into it that these problems are solved? Have they engaged the separatist leaders themselves to at least reason out with them as their fathers to wanting to put a definite end to the ongoing crisis?
For the traditional rulers, they have played their own part.
Okay.
But the part is not good enough. In as much as the elites in these two regions are at the center of the cause of this conflict, because they feed fat from it at the detriment of the poor masses, they know what I'm talking about. They know. And many of them have taken permanent residence in Douala, in Yaoundé, have bought houses and all the like, and they are very okay. Now, when we look at what the elites are doing, just like what my brother Prince Dre just said, that the whole issue now is calling for self-aggrandizement. I said the other day, when I saw on social media, on TV, things being donated in Dongamanta, I said it was a good initiative. I've seen another way again message, a good initiative. But I asked the question, if you are carrying out donations, must these things accompany party fabrics and to look like it's a CPDM affair? That is what defeats the purpose of all those jargons they tell us they are doing over there. Because in real terms, most of these things, people are taking advantage to instead make political gains at the detriment of a serious issue when lives are at stake. It is very sad. At the issue of the traditional rulers, I said several times on this platform that because the traditional rulers had allowed themselves to be caged by the state to enter into politics, ruling party, they give you the impression that now if you're not in the ruling party, you will not have development projects. It is a fundamental right for a village in an area to get development projects from the state. They are supposed to be distributed equitably. But now, because of the wrong mechanism put in place by Yaoundé regime, most of the elites have been able to cajole the traditional rulers to enter politics with them. Deceiving them that as well in politics, that is when you have many things that will come from the state. Look at the royal majesty of the Solan, for example. You know what culture means. We're talking about the Northwest region. And look at His Royal Majesty for Nabumbi, the third in Bafut. You see, these are two different leaders at a particular point in time because they all command respect, but one has shone away from politics and decides to pick up his cap as a traditional ruler. Another one has been brought over into politics, and the whole issue becomes complex. Until you get some subjects tell you that we don't want this our traditional ruler, it is a sacrilege. So why are these things coming up? Because if you move to the southwest as well, most of the traditional rulers, because of the issues of land, many of them have been given new layouts. You catch them. Many of them work with what you call administrative authorities. They seed land, and that's how they make the money. At the end of it, you are forced to dance to the tune of the system if you want to get more benefit. That is why I said for some few chiefs in the Southwest and some few traditional rulers who had refused entering into politics, they carry out their business and they work gaining money. These are the kind of chiefs you cannot put them in the rank called royal beggars. It cannot go. If I look at the fund of Baba One in the Northwest, Ngokutunja, I look at His Royal Majesty for Dr. Fomiki Waters in Gunokwe. These elites are not into politics. I look at another one in Barakwe village and some of them in my area there. They said they are not into politics and their respect stands. You cannot force them into politics. So we are saying that the chiefs who were supposed to be custodians, because at a point in time where you are not into politics, it's easier for you to talk to a civil man and he listens to you. It's easier for you to talk to somebody from SDF who listens to you, or any other party, because he sees you as a father. He is not picturing you as a political figure working for the state. So these issues were carefully wrapped up when the state told them that, all right, after being loyal to me, look, let me give you even salaries. We know the condition that led to the putting in place of some senators in the two regions.
Yes, but my question to you is, what do you think the chiefs, the traditional rulers, have done to engaging the separatist fighters as their children to come to an understanding, and also engaging the state? Because these elites that we are talking about, they are all sons and daughters from these villages.
Yeah, they have not done something. Why? Because at a point in time when the truth was required to put on the table, these chiefs and funds, most of them, over 85% of them, had lost that trust between they themselves and their subjects. That's the reality. So a subject sees you as a political figure now. He does not see you as his father and the custodian of tradition. So talking to him, he will look at you as if you are singing a song. And that's why I said that the places where most of these chiefs and funds, 85% of them, went and put their hand into and began bootlicking for the state. We know what happened in Vomeka, where many of them were disgraced over there. You could imagine the sacrilege. Why? Because they had stooped low in order for meager things teleguided by our elites who are in Yaoundé. So at the end of it, they few who you find some of them there in their palaces, and even though they have been accused of working with the separatists and all the like, it's because there's so few of them.
Are you saying that the traditional rulers would not want this crisis to end, or they lack the capacity?
No, they lack the capacity. Not that they will not want. They lack the capacity because there is a breach between them themselves and their subjects for political reasons, as point number one, while many of them too have not lived up with the dignity expected as per traditional people. So at the end of it, when you take a stool, you meet with politics. We've had several reports where we're asking, are traditional laws supposed to be into politics? Many of them said, no, it's a civic right, it's a civic right. But in real terms, see where it lands us. Because somebody who sees you as a pro-regime member, because if you look at the first class and the second class chiefs and funds we have, I will tell you 95% of them are from the ruling class. So what do you tell somebody who is against the system? He sees you as part of that system, and there's nothing you can tell him that he will take to believe. So this is where the issue comes. So if they were neutral and they had commanded their respect as custodians of tradition and not custodians of politics, they would have been able to talk. So what they lack the local standing to talk to those separatist fighters, and that's why many of them have escaped from their palaces, even though Minna is forcing them to go back there because of regional elections.
Okay, Leslie Sip, good evening to you. You say the government bench of Cameroon don't want the crisis to end, in my own opinion, because they are not ready for any negotiation with Southern Cameroonian leaders. That is where I want to come. Andrin Atemebako, there is a lot of talk actually vehiculated around social media on the need for negotiations, and most often there is a tendency for persons to blame the government. Do you see the separatist leaders, like he says here, I'm sure you talked about it also, that there was a need for some of them to have been invited to take part in the major national dialogue, but do you see them also making that frantic effort to wanting to engage government to find a lasting solution to the ongoing crisis?
Mr. Liu, the way I look at this thing is, in my view, is quite complicated, because I don't still think that Cameroonians really understand the problem in Cameroon.
Okay.
It is in the interest of the government, in any other government who wants to have a rule over a people, will always find the system of divide and rule to be implemented. The more the years go by that the conflict persists, the more people are being displaced in those two regions. So far, we are talking of close to 1 million persons that have been displaced internally and in neighboring countries in Africa. Almost 1 million. I don't want to give the statistics of those that left Africa, who we saw about 40,000 Cameroonians at the border of Brazil trying to forge their way to the United States. And we have almost close to how many thousand persons that have died due to this war. What is the population in the Northwest and in the Southwest? It was just 5 million. So if you look at all this displacement, how many persons are now remaining in those two regions? So the more persons are being killed, the more persons are being displaced, the more the government takes grip over those two regions. We have to understand this, that it is in no interest that we should allow this conflict to persist, because at the end of the day, we are giving the government an upper hand to militarize those two regions, which at the end of the day, we will not have any more to say in those regions. Coming down to the Grand National Dialogue and the elites and the funds of those two regions, we have to understand the political structure, not only in Cameroon, that embrace the canopy of democracy. The problem Cameroon is facing is, as any other African country that has also been a colony of France and also Britain. So Cameroon is not the only country going through this kind of situation. So we must understand that until we begin to go back and review those policies in 1960 and 1961, we are not going anywhere. Because until we begin to understand that the nationalists in 1958 who fought for the independence in Cameroon, who were denied and brought in the democracy and the independence that we at the end of the day got from France, we are not going anywhere, because at the end of the day we will complain. The Grand National Dialogue was organized as a result of the failure for the funds and the elites of those two regions that were unable to have handled that situation at their level, and now became victims to that crisis. So that dialogue was being organized so that they should go there and cry their die, and how will I put it? So it was a die house, a cry die house, where people went there to cry their die. So it was not really a forum meant or designed to resolve the problem, because Cameroonians know the problem which is happening in those two regions, and they understand that it was not anymore at the level of the elites and the funds to have resolved the problem, because we saw in how it was being hijacked out of the hands of the teachers and the lawyers who began that protest. So at that moment, it was still in the hands of the funds and the elites. But when it was being hijacked, it was no longer whereby the elites became victims, the chiefs became victims, whereby they became now internally displaced. So that was a forum, or the Grand National Dialogue was just a mere cry down for a die house for them to go and shed their tears. So that is the way I look at it. So at the end of the day, Mr. Leo, there are certain body of how will I put it, those that are supposed to assume responsibility. We know that the government is supposed to assume responsibility, and we know that the religious leaders are supposed to assume responsibility. The church has not been able to play its role due to this crisis, because we know that the government has done its own part, even though it has not addressed the problem to its core, because the government says it does not want to talk with those who wants to secede the country, but at the end of the day, they are Cameroonians. And at the end of the day, either one will neutralize the other one, or the both of them will come to the table. So that is the way I look at it, that whether if a Cameroonian says he wants to secede does not give an absence of a dialogue whereby they both of them can sit on the table and be able to sort out their differences, instead of saying that we can talk any other thing but we should not talk about secession. I think that, like I used to keep saying all the time, that in those early beginnings, the separatist fighters were not really interested to say we want to separate the country. It's just that when people have become so mad, they can say things because they are angry. But when you begin to talk to them, when you begin to see what is really their problem, and you start seeing how to solve those problems, you start seeing how they start coming out from a very hard decision which they have taken. So the way I look at it, Mr. Leo, I look at it that we should be very careful as Cameroonians, because we are losing human resources here on both sides, and we are losing the economy, and we are losing our the future of the youth who are in those two regions. All of those things we are losing. So at the end of the day, what has this war brought to us? What are we winning? What have we gained? On both sides, we are losing.
Okay.
That is just my point.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. I like your program. May God keep your media. And I am Adam, writing from Kumbu in Bui Division. Good evening to you all in the studio. Mr. Liu, I really want this crisis to stop. It has been 4 years now that I have not seen my village, Womb Town. Amwam, Jay-Z, writing from Limbe, Mbende Street. Okay, yes, we all are longing to go to Womb. My name's Andy Julius, writing from Yaoundé. It is impossible to end the situation in the northwest and southwest regions because corruption is contributing almost 19% of the problem. For me to end it, government has to stop those risk payments to military. They value it more than their salaries. For the separatists, those prisoners that escape from prison, like Endop and Kumbo, in which society would they belong? Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu. It's an awesome program. For me, I really want the crisis to end because so far, we have not seen any fruits from both parties. We know not where this is heading to, but we know we can make a change by taking a step towards it. It's better late than never, but the master brain behind the continuity of the crisis is the government, because the government is competent enough to end the crisis today if they really want to. Felix is writing from Boya. I want us to look at the commitment of the international community to see into it that the crisis end. Have they done enough? Prince Joel, we have seen many diplomatic person, very high profile diplomats make their way to and out of Cameroon, in the likes of the Secretary General of the United Nations, La Francophonie, the Commonwealth, and a host of others. Seemingly, are they helpless, or they do not have what it takes to pressure both the separatists and the government to put an end to this? Also, considering what has happened to Cameroonians who were brought back from America this afternoon.
Sure, Mr. Leo. Most countries have their sovereignty, and it is but true that at one time, I think one of the topics we had here was international organs. Why are they not really coming into what is ongoing in the Northwest and the Southwest for 4 years? I think it is because, I don't want to say they are helpless, it is maybe because the moment has not come for them to actually intervene.
Okay.
I don't know whether it is when everybody in the Northwest and the Southwest should have died before they'll come in, because we've seen the American ambassador to Cameroon, the outgoing American ambassador. We saw him with the president of Cameroon. We've seen so many high-profile personalities visit the Unity Palace, and each time these people leave, there is one thing they tell the press. We have discussed with the president of Cameroon to ensure that the crisis in the Northwest and the Southwest come to an end. That is what they always tell the press. The question now you ask yourself is, why after their meetings, nothing is done? I just feel that maybe first of all, because the fact that the time has not come for them to pressure yet. I'm saying so because we have seen most of these powers within and without, in other parts of Africa, we've seen the pressure. He talked about Gaddafi. We know what happened actually in Libya when the external powers came into game.
Then they decided that,
yes,
okay.
Yes, they decided. We know what happened in Libya. That's just a case in point. We know what is ongoing now in Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah, in Zimbabwe, we saw yeah.
So Mr. Leo, when you look at these other countries where the international bodies have come in and said, okay, no, we want an end to this, and we see the thing coming to an end. The question I always ask myself is Cameroon exceptional? What is different in Cameroon? Why is it that this pressure that is in other countries cannot come to Cameroon so much such that the crisis? Because there is something I always say, Mr. Leo, a majority of our top politicians, their children are not in the Northwest and the Southwest. These people who go give books, how many of their children study in those schools in these areas? They are not there. A majority of them don't have their children in this area. And whether the war goes on for 100 years, some of them will tell you backstage, after all, it is you that is losing. It is you that is losing because there's maybe one poor mama in Misaje who does not know anybody in Douala, Yaoundé or Bafoussam, and now she is forced to stay with the child, whereas those who are actually fanning the flames of the war, their children are studying in the other regions of the country. So I just believe that, Mr. Leo, for now, the international community, I don't know why, maybe since Five is versed with political sciences and other and domains of international relations, is going to add something to what I'm saying. But I just feel that the international community as of now, Mr. Leo, what they have done, I remember when you had the same topic, you asked me, and I told you at one time that what they are saying is just blah, blah. I don't know why. Is it that they are still gaining economically, or what is ongoing that?
Yeah, because let's take the case of Ngarbu. We had condemnation. We've had a series of the killing of the lady in Moyuka. In Moyuka, there was
yes.
an international condemnation.
Even when Ayafo Florence was killed,
it ends after that, everything.
All we hear is wrong, wrong, wrong. Remember that after the incident in Garbu, there was a special commission that was created by the president with objective to probe into it and see who actually committed the action.
Yeah, some of the military men have been sentenced already.
Do we have the figures to know where they are?
Yeah, but the question is, what is the international community actually doing to ensure that another Ngabu does not happen?
That's why I'm saying that as of now, the international community just it's like what many persons describe the League of Nations as a toothless bulldog. Because they just keep, to me, it's just making more of noise. Mr. Joe, if America, in just few days, like you said, so many compatriots who left America landed in Cameroon today, in Douala. Now, it means that if Trump can just decide within a jiffy, and people are coming back already to their country, it means that if the same Trump decides tomorrow, the crisis will end. Let us be serious to say that America remains the super.
But how do you react to it? It is true, tomorrow in the program we are going to use at least 20-30 minutes to discuss about what has happened. But how do you react to these guys who were seeking asylum and have been sent back to Cameroon?
First of all, Mr. Liu, I think that what has been done to them, they have come back home. Home because, let us be honest, the conditions under which they were living, a majority of them wasn't that favorable. And if you were to talk to them, if you were to sample opinions of some who have come back, they will tell you they feel relief coming back. Because a majority of our brothers back in Cameroon, the idea we always have is, I want to go out. Some of us may not have traveled out of Cameroon, but when I look at what people go through out there, at times I used to feel that it is better to sit in your country and be eating your cocoyam and even your red oil. Than going out there where you're exposed.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm enjoying your program. I want to say that traditional rulers in the Northwest and Southwest have lost their authorities because of this, the separatist fighters rubbish these traditional rulers as they bow to them. Traditional rulers therefore have nothing to say or do to bring an end to the crisis. Mr. Liu, I have seen traditional rulers who use the name of separatist fighters to collect money from family members during occasions in the village. Francis is writing from Bamenda. Pius says, hello, Mr. Liu. I'm Pius. I'm Chair from Suekom Douala. It's my wish for this crisis to end, but the million-dollar question is the way to end it. The government should frankly dialogue with the separatists, taking into account all proposals from them as a zero taboo. Withdraw the military from the Northwest and Southwest and invite a neutral body as a mediator. Good evening, sir. I'm Kumila, live from Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Greetings to all in the studio. Keep on with the good work. I love your program. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Kum. The program is good. I'm Kum Frederick, writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Fred. It's good evening, Mr. Liu and Tim. Your program is just wonderful. My take here is that the state does not want this crisis to end. It's just very unfortunate that the true history of this nation has been rubbed to the mud. Now, who would tell us the truth? I keep on asking this question. The only thing that will bring an end to the nonsense is the sincere history of this nation. Okay, Linda Fai is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you. Linda Pierlot says there is no democracy in Africa. Talk less of Cameroon. The government and the southern Cameroon elites don't have the goodwill to end the crisis because they don't have the southern Cameroonians at heart. Pierlot is writing from Kumba. Okay, I want to read this from Paddy Asanga, writing from Hamburg in Germany. Paddy Asanga says that, good evening, Leo. These are the four categories of people who don't want the crisis to end. They are all afraid of a federation. The power-drunk elite in Yaoundé are afraid of federation because they don't want to share power. Okay. 2, the power-hungry diaspora because they have tested by collecting money with giving accounts to anyone. Okay, you cite them. 3, you say brainwash Anglophones because of lack of convictions and would flip-flop from federalist to separation because of a brother or sister was killed. Some even change positions because of a bottle of beer. 4, you say brainwash Francophones who have eaten sardines so long so that the government can convince them that a two-state federation is equal to separation. The Quebecois model of federation is the best for Cameroon. Good evening to you, Paddy Asanga. He raised the issue of the international community not doing enough to wanting to solve the problem, and he said maybe you have better mastery of the way diplomacy works.
Let's just take into international politics at the same time, and then we'll look at what they call that's diplomacy. As I said, diplomacy operates in 2 fronts. 1, there is official diplomacy and there is unofficial diplomacy. Now, official diplomacy would give to you the other principles that governs what it takes for states to interact with other organizations within the sphere of influence. For example, with official diplomacy, they will tell you that all states have what they call sovereign right to vote, voting right. If you are at an international organization, be it Francophonie, be it Commonwealth, be it the United Nations, all of you have voting rights. That's what they will tell you. Meaning that Equatorial Guinea, that is like full stop, has the same voting right like America. That's the impression they give you at the normal aspect of international politics or diplomacy. Now, but now when you start going into details now, the other side of diplomacy is what is transpiring in Cameroon. For other side of diplomacy, there are other factors that come into play. Factor 1 will be, how is the leader of a particular country leasing up with the other diplomatic services? That's one thing people don't understand, that Yaoundé regime has all it takes to invest in diplomacy than in things within the country. That's the more reason why I had loved one of the politicians known as Madam Kawala, who sometimes said that any protest you carry out of the nation's capital does not yield fruit except you move to Yaoundé. I'm sure she understood that concept, because in the concept put in place by the regime in Yaoundé, they have understood that concept of diplomacy very well. Now, with the other form of diplomacy, as I was explaining, what transpires is that in international scene, they rate problems or conflicts at a particular level. If you come to the situation of Cameroon, they see Cameroon more as what they call an internal conflict, not as war, as we who are in Cameroon think. Now, if you go to places like Somalia, where the Al-Shabaab militiamen are doing devastating work, suicide bombs day in, day out, that is war. If you go to Syria, where you have bombings every day in Aleppo, it is war. If you go to the Palestinian border, Afghanistan, that is war. That one, international community acts in a different dimension. Now, what people don't understand is that they will pray every day for America to come in. Germany to come. They will not come because they still see our own as internal conflict, meaning that the conflict, according to them, has not reached the red zone. They have what they call red zone international policy, whereby when it attains, that's when they start coming in. So what is happening? In the other side of international politics or diplomacy, which is the wrong one, of course, is what they call interest. Interest of states and interest of organizations come in. Now, the question now is, if organizations have interest in Cameroon, the question now is, the powers that be, are they satisfying that interest? If the powers that be are satisfying the interest, we have a lot of logging companies from France, Spain, and all the like into the East region. Many of them were in the Southwest and all the like. We have companies that have interest with the fuel exploration in the Indian area and in the coast of Limbe. So long as there are deals, because even in the deals we have, when you come to have contracts between states and organizations, there are official part of the contract and unofficial, as I said earlier. For the unofficial, when it comes to contract, they can tell you, all right, we have this number of years to extract oil. Away from that, you as the head of state, you have this number of benefits in addition to this deal. These are things people don't tell you, but those even when they teach you not, they hide it. So in Cameroon, why will international organizations be lukewarm? Because first they have a point of interest. And what is the interest? If I'm a member of the Francophonie, what role are you playing as Cameroon to support this organization Francophonie? If you dance to the tune well, we can put a blind eye on what is happening. So long, because what is the fear? In international politics, the fear is that you better deal with the devil you know than the angel you don't know. Because if you look at what happened in Cote d'Ivoire, Gbagbo was co-opted in by France. What was the idea? As a lecturer of history at the university, they knew that the terms that were put on the ground, different from official terms, was that Gbagbo should play the role of continuing to protect French interests, which Gbagbo accepted, but with a hidden agenda. Now, when Gbagbo rose to power against Ouattara, what was supposed was that when Gbagbo got into power, he felt that he had a grip in Ivory Coast and started acting otherwise, that is ultravirus to the contract, the secret pact he had with France. So because France could not contain and seeing Gbagbo a potential enemy to end France's interest in Cote d'Ivoire, the only thing was for a coup d'etat to be mounted, and at the end of it, we saw Gbagbo being removed like a rat being removed from a whole cage. So these are the issues that transpire. So with Cameroon, we have talked about Garbu and all the like. The things will only end. It can only crop up the day Yaoundé regime begins to play headstrong with these organizations. I will tell you like what Joy just said. If you look at the issue in Iraq, America did not go to Security Council before storming Baghdad to remove Saddam Hussein. So that's why we say that in a state of diplomacy, there are exceptions to the law, which means that when France was moving in to unseat Gaddafi, France did not follow the due process of incursion into a foreign country, which they say the country has sovereign rights. It was not respected. Why? Because France has its own allies within the Security Council who stayed quiet and said, move ahead, we're with you. So the whole issue is complex. So what happens? Yaoundé will stay on with this conflict for the next 50 years as long as they will permit countries who have power in the various organizations to continue having their interests and grabbing what they're grabbing. They will carry gold, they will carry anything that they can carry without us knowing, and the war will remain until.
Yeah, you look at conflicts, you look at interest, but the United Nations may also look at interest, because they may consider that they will not want to say destabilize Cameroon, because Cameroon is host to thousands of refugees up north because of the Boko Haram fleeing from Nigeria.
Yes.
And then Cameroon is also host to many thousands of refugees in the east.
Now, let me just come in from what you are saying, Mr. Leo.
And then also,
yeah.
These are some factors that I gathered. Some persons would say that Cameroon is also serving as a safe passage. That is, Cameroon provides a safe corridor to move UN hardware from the port of Douala to Bangui. So they would want yes.
Yes, I understand the way you're putting it. The interest that comes in, you have explained the way it's going, but it goes beyond. Why do I say United Nations interest goes beyond? United Nations, once is acting, there are member states that make up the United States. That makes up the United Nations. Each time decisions are taken, the interest of the members is also taken into consideration, especially the members who have what they call economic power and military power.
The veto powers.
We talk about we have the G7 or the G8. We also have what we call the Security Council members. So all of these members, they have what they call backdoor meetings that they always hold. Now, if you want to do this, what is your interest there? They could tell you, please, if you move like that, I have another interest there. Can we take another strategy? It's a whole school of thought that I said, though they will project to you that it's a safe corridor. Now, if you compare the weight of Cameroon with the weight of the United Nations, you discover the United Nations wants peace to end today. First, with economic embargo, because Cameroon relies on almost everything. They borrow every day. The borrow capacity of Cameroon is high. They only need to lease with IMF and lease with World Bank. Please suspend all these things, because that's how they work. Okay. At the end of it, if United Nations wants this crisis to come to an end, it can come to an end within the shortest period of time, and the interest goes on. But since it is a dubious affair, as I said, Yaoundé is intelligent, I must admit. Yaoundé is playing the diplomacy in a technical manner, and that's why they will do everything possible to work diplomatically, even if it means giving out forests, giving out whatever, so long as the member states are satisfied. They will be downplaying the crisis until when they start thinking that their interest is at stake. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Appreciate for all that your program is very interesting, and let God bless you and give you more power to do the good job. And finally, God, we see we through. Romeo talking from Yaoundé. This is government. Since I was born, I only know but one president, so I will still die knowing only one president. Okay, Romeo, you will not die. It's not good to wish yourself. Fonkem Patrick says, good evening, Mr. Kun. Bravo to our military for liberating the people of Bisali and its neighbors from the Ayeke. I'm praying tirelessly for Diamond to follow suit. This is not a struggle anymore, but terrorism. Keju is writing from Mutengene. Good evening, Mr. Liu. There are three groups of persons who don't want this crisis to end. The military, amber fighters, and those involved in commissions created by the government to end the crisis. The amber fighters kidnap people and ask for ransom. The military exploits the local population. Those involved in the commissions created by the government don't want it to come to an end because they receive money for work not done. All of these groups are feeding fat in the crisis and they don't want the crisis to come to an end. I'm Frederick, writing from Yaoundé. Hi, Mr. Leo and all panelists. Let's thank the head of state and his friends in Yaoundé. The crisis in the northwest and southwest is now a business for many, especially some government officials and hardened criminals who joined the struggle to better execute their plans profitably. So the government needs to investigate itself. Nobeto Fernandez is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Kwele, writing from Kwele. If the government wants to end the crisis, first thing to do is that they should release all separatist leaders without reasons. From there, the crisis will take its shape. Good evening. Mr. Liu. Just imagine you fighting with your son over a piece of land, and that is rightly yours. That is what the government is doing. If the government conducts a true dialogue, they will not believe the results because the population is really suffering from the amber boys, which I think separation would not be considered. Alain is writing from Bamenda. Now, okay, many messages. You from the messages that persons are writing, they say there are persons within the government who would not want to see this to end, and they are also indexing separatist fighters, which means that the population is caught in the web. But is the population not also to be blamed here, because in societies there is always this concept of silent majority that suffers? They say when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers.
Mr. Liu, let me say this for the purpose of emphasis to all Cameroonians. We have said this thing over and over until some of us have become very tired in talking. You see, the problem in Cameroon is that Cameroon is still a colony of France. That is number one. Number two, the problem of Cameroon is at the level of the United Nations. Number three, until Cameroonians understand that their problem is a system which they inherited, they are going nowhere. That's a simple reality. Whether you solve this conflict today, you have another problem tomorrow. The question here is, how do we do a one-time fix to resolve the problem in Cameroon? And that will take Cameroonians to come together and look at Cameroon and redefine Cameroon in the spirit of Cameroonians and where they want to take Cameroon to. Because today we may be talking of who are the people interested in this war. Of course, the United Nations is interested in the war. Of course, France is interested in the war. Because we understand the agenda of the depopulation, not only of the Cameroonians or the people of the Northwest and Southwest, but of the African population entirely. So we are not ignorant about some of these things. You are talking about the United Nations coming here. Which country? The United Nations, as a matter of fact, Mr. Leo, should be one of those organizations that should be tried for human rights violation, because the essence of the United Nations is not what the United Nations represents today. For example, we are talking of here of we being a member of the United Nations. We are just like an artificial member. We don't have sovereignty at the level of the United Nations. We are talking of 5 countries that have veto power, that are able to intimidate any African president at any time. You look at what they did to Mugabe. They gave him sanction for all the years he was in power. And at the end of the day, what did Mugabe do wrong for fighting for the sovereignty for his people? That is how Africa is today. The African countries have been sold. We did not have honest Cameroonians and honest elites and chiefs and government officials to tell Cameroonians that Cameroon has been sold even before Biya took power. People are not honest to say that. And that is where we have problem today in Cameroon. So all this one that we are trying to talk here, party politics, talk about special status, talk about Northwest, talk about Southwest, talk about we are wasting our time. I am saying that until Cameroonians begin to copy, for example, like what we saw in Mali, that Malians have a very high rate of illiteracy in Mali. But look at what their Malians have been able to achieve beside the ECOWAS bloc. Okay. And they are gearing down towards their sovereignty. So what am I simply trying to say here, Mr. Leo?
You are saying that Cameroonians should have answered to the call of Professor Maurice Kamto. Is that what you're saying?
That is not what I'm saying, Mr. Leo. I don't believe in division, and I don't believe in people keep building opposition and political party, because there is no political party, as I keep saying all the time, under the context of democracy. The problem here is not the administration. The problem here is not the leader. The problem here is not which political party should be in power today. The problem is a system which the Africans or the Cameroonians have adopted, which is not working for them, Mr.
You say defining Cameroon in the spirit of Cameroon.
That is to say that Cameroonians must be able to have the right to self-determination and choose. It's the same thing I said in Mali. The Malians should be able to decide and choose the kind of government. They should not fall back to the ballot box. Mm-hmm. They should not fall back to the issue of electoral process. We saw it also in which country was that? We saw that in is it Zimbabwe? No, even America. We saw that the electoral processes don't work, ballot boxes don't work. At the end of the day, it is the person that counts the vote that matters and not the person that votes. So all I'm simply trying to say here is that let each man, and these 5 countries that I still talk at the level of the United Nations, tell me which African member state is at that level that has veto power to defend the Africans. We don't have any person at the United Nations. Okay. We don't have anyone to defend us at that level. So you don't expect the same people who have been seeking to destroy us, and yet we are calling them. It's just like I expect somebody to come and take care of my responsibilities, send my children to school when I am there to do that. So it's foolishness for Cameroonians to be expecting that United Nations should come down here, or all those organizations. They are all scams. They are just all mediums to take money and give it, and take money and pass it there. But at the end of the day, it will not meet the plight of the common man. When you talk about they only go to war, it is not true. The resolution or the agenda behind the so-called United Nations, which is put in their document, if you go to their website, was to foster peace in all its member states and to support the decolonization of all the colonies. But at the end of the day, we saw how many wars in all the African countries. What did the United Nations do? They did nothing. They are using all these conflicts to the advantage, because they understand that as long as Africans are divided, they will keep achieving what they want to achieve here. So that is the way I look at it.
Okay, let us look at somebody says that one of the groups yes, one of the groups who would not want to see this conflict, and some of the commissions that came out of the ongoing crisis. You said that already, that some persons, but I want us to look at the Bilingualism Commission, the law on decentralization, and we have other things that were done, the Reconstruction Commission. Are you seeing them moving at the pace that people would have expected, so that it brings solace to the people to see the will of the government, to wanting to see it that their problems are solved?
Mr. Leo, I don't.
These guys are also working at the pace of the government.
Yeah, I do not think so. I do not think so. We've seen so many commissions created. Mm-hmm. You will agree with me that Christian Cardinal to me and Bishop Nkia were sent with the objective to sensitize people on a special status. Till date, we don't know. The feedback is not known. The Reconstruction Commission, we saw Minister Paul Tassong and Mayor John Donatus. We saw them in the Northwest and in the Southwest. And in the North and the Southwest, we saw them in the chief towns of these areas. At times, when you want to take gauge of what is actually happening, go to the nooks and crannies. So much so that you really know that what is happening is real. You know, if we still have this crisis still ongoing, Mr. Leo, is the fact that a majority of the persons concerned, or those who have been given responsibility to ensure that the crisis comes to an end, do not really know the temperature of what is ongoing in the two regions. A majority end in Ayaba Hotel, a majority end in Mountain Hotel in Boya. A majority do not actually know what is actually happening in the field. And that is why the solutions they are bringing, or maybe their proposals, are not actually creating any impact, Mr. Leo. We are talking about the Reconstruction Commission. All of us are talking of back to school. I'm one of those who say no children should go back to school. Because if I come and sit on a platform like this and talk, it's because I saw the four walls of a classroom. If not, I could not talk the way I'm talking. But how do children go back to school, for instance, in an area like Kumbu, where schools, not all schools, were burned? Schools have been destroyed. It means that up to now, the Reconstruction Commission should have already proposed to the head of state that 5th of October is the day that the Prime Minister had said we'll be back to school nationwide. But what about areas where schools have been destroyed completely? We need to reconstruct these areas. What about children who have left and are maybe staying 30, 25 of them? Mr. If you go to Bonaberi here in Douala, there are houses where people are more than 40 in a room. Those are facts and figures. Now, what has been done to ensure that these people are living under precarious conditions go back to their own areas? So the series of commissions that have been created, like Far Avis put it before now, is just because the wrong methodology was used. And if 1 + 1 is not 2, any answer that comes that is not 2 is wrong. That is why I think one mathematician once said that wrong is wrong even if everybody does it, and right is right even if nobody does it. The series of commissions, take another point like the Mosonge-led commission, the Commission of Bilingualism and Multiculturalism. What is the impact of the commission? We still have 40 translations. We still have ministries where you want to go to, without calling names, is written in French, tirer, and instead of saying pull, you see draw. It gives you a different translation of it. And I feel that if the right thing was done from day one, if the right persons were consulted during the major national dialogue, if the right persons sat on the table, some of these things would have been avoided. Avoided because the right persons would have said, if you want a commission like this, for instance, a commission of reconstruction, if you want it to achieve, given that we have gone to the field, we have collected the data, we know what is ongoing in the field, let this person and not this person be there. Let this strategy and not this strategy be there. But given that the same people who have been with the regime for long, because if you look at those who headed the different 8 commissions that constituted the major national dialogue, and the 8 resolutions that came up later, there was no new face in all these 8 people. Christian Cardinatum is not a new face. Osi Joshua is not a new face. Even Ngole Philippe Ngwese. All those are not new faces. All these persons who headed these commissions are already persons who are already part of the corridors of the Unity Palace. So when you take the same people who have been part of a system who may not actually master the real problem, a majority of these people before the crisis don't actually know where some of these hard-hit areas are found.
Okay, your program is very enriching. God bless you. Lovett is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Lovett. Good evening to you, Mr. Leo. Your program is amazing. We all know that the old politicians who make a lot of billions, so it cannot stop. Obase writing from Mundimba. Good evening to you, Obase. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I like the program of today. Many people want that the crisis to end, but we are waiting for the United States of America to say something for the Anglophones. This is Augustine writing from Bamenda. Okay. Good evening to all of you in the studio. I think all of us want the crisis to end, but the state is not using the right approach, because in the face of a crisis, we don't need to blame anybody, but whatsoever reason, because even the separatist fighters did not start fighting. Those children protest for their rights. Okay, Dennis is also writing from Bamenda. Greetings to you all in the studio. Tabot writing from Boya. We used to know Cameroon as a peaceful country, but now Cameroon has now become like a nightmare. That man by something is good. Please, we need these things to come to an end, because I'm not even where I want to be. Thank you. This one says, a direct answer to your question under my screen is the government, simply because a genuine solution to the crisis will mean a complete overhaul of the political establishment and the subsequent demise of those in command. Thus, it takes a popular uprising for a solution to... Okay, Paul is writing from Boya. Stop calling, please. Good evening, Mr. Leo. And the panelists, I love your shows. We all want this senseless war to end, but the regime does not want it to end, because they are eating fat from the crisis. So are those in the diaspora and some in the separatist fighters, until all come to an end. A point of Congress. Abdul Joda writing from Bafusan Baptist Hospital. Good evening to you, my brother. Good evening to you all there in the TV. I am watching you from Mutengene, the junction town. The traditional rulers has joined politics, so the crisis cannot end. Every day one and the same things. For my own point of view, if Southwest was like the Northwest region, the government would have seen it their own rest. Okay. Good evening. Government and some of the traditional rulers, because they benefit from that. Francis is writing from Kumba. Mr. Leo, please read my poem. The game goes on and on. It is a statement on why the Anglophone war cannot stop that easily. Check your okay. Honorable, let me check my WhatsApp. The messages are just so many since you are insisting. Let me check, Honorable. Stop the calls, please. Honorable, oops, the messages are so many, but I think I will read Honorable's message. Honorable Ndoku, writing from Kumba. Let me read the poem so that he may send a message to the televiewers. The game goes on and on for Senator Andrew Mofa Ote, with admiration by Agbondoku Eret. Two elephants themselves tore like giant gladiators in a tug of war, a game reserved not for ants without gate of giant black elephants. Days and months they pull an imaginary rope, their tool. What yesterday started as a game, 4 years has grown into a war of fame. Each victory to himself arrogates as profiteers screw open the gates, ripping the elephant abundant faces. In a game now turned a disease. Umpires cry for recess. The elephant tagging grows excess. Profiteers tactfully take over the game, even when in truth tagging grows lame. And the game goes on, and the profiteers gain on and on. The poor grass suffers on and on, as peace gets endangered on and on. Honorable Agbondoku Erete, writing from Kumba today. We are glad to have this from you. But for Elvis Tayong, many persons think that separatist leaders need to make a concession, to make some concessions, as well as the government, to see into it that the problems of the common man is looked into.
Yes, concessions needs to come from both parties. That you have a point. Now, when some of us carry out the analysis, our problem here is that there is a legal entity, in quotes, and there is another entity that is not regarded as being legal. So, in quotes too, because as I said, like what Mbako said, the problem is that the problem too, UN has a problem in it, because when you leave a part of a country half-baked, or you leave them halfway, you leave them vulnerable for another one to decide the fate of the other. So, in this case, we realize here that both of them they are supposed to make that concession. But what is the issue? In any conflict, the government that mans an area within a given period of time has an upper hand to take a step for the conflict to be resolved. We have said that over and over. The people in Yaoundé, the ministers, even President Paul Biya, they know what to do. They want this crisis to come to an end. They know. France itself knows what to do. If France wants this conflict to come to an end today, it will come to an end. United Nations that took us to territory in a half-baked manner and left us orphans, they know what to do. So, in a nutshell, both the separatists and the government could make concession. But now, the unwillingness of both parties to come together creates the problem where we are. But what am I saying? While the issue continues, the state has an upper hand, I repeat. The state has an upper hand if the state truly believes that those in the English-speaking known as Southern Cameroonians are part of them. Then the state needs to stoop low to give another methodology to arrive towards the conflict resolution, which the state has deliberately refused, as per the conditions of we can discuss anything but not this. So when we look at the constitution we're talking about here, as I said, whether we go up or we come down, the state is at the pivot of this crisis. They cannot escape it. And that's why I said that we can rigmarole today, tomorrow, and the day after. One thing is for sure, that the conflict would end at the dialogue table. Come rain, come sun. If those CPD and militants in Yaoundé want, or they think at the regime that they can prolong, because I have told them over and over, if you look at comparative politics and comparative conflict in the world, Colombia cannot have over 50 years. Meaning you are born to the age of 50 years, war is still going on. And then at the end, the government realizes that it is taking them nowhere. And then they call the FARC rebels to table, and peace comes. I don't see how it's impossible. I hear the Cameroon government and the regime barons in Yaoundé say, we don't discuss with terrorists. In conflict resolution, if you want to bring a conflict to an end, even if your opponent has a name, a rebel, or any bad name, the end result is that you must call that person to table. But we don't fight so now, we don't see any hate. No, we do how? These things are supposed to be taken by he who has an upper hand in the conflict, because he holds the knife and the yam, who could tell the person, all right, enough is enough. And I've been giving this anecdote, that if you are in the house with your son, for example, and your son has been proving very recalcitrant, whether it's influenced by the environment or some stubborn friends, you could beat the child, and after some time, a father leaves the cane and calls the child, you take the child as a friend. Now, John, sit down here. Do you know my friend? He will say, yes, daddy. What do you think we can do? Because let us see how we can solve this problem. Are you not my son? He will tell you, you are my son. Before you know it, the cane you were using on that child, which is no longer the issue, will start bringing the child to reason. And so that recalcitrant spirit of the child will start disappearing. And the child starts seeing you as a friend. Before you know it, that child was rebellious, becomes now a friend. So this is a method. Yaoundé thinks that arrogance and the story of unvalued neutralisé. I see people jubilating on the issue of Ayeke, and what happens in the BLM division. It is true. But I told people, and I repeat to Yaoundé, that we are not saying that terrorism should be promoted. But one thing is for sure, to kill an ideological war is not biscuit, as you think. Because I remember before the 1st of October and all the like, I hear the guy have been going around installing what as generals and all the like. What becomes of those one? They could have escaped, but they can regroup and come back. You have other factions left and right on the ground. And today I was coming, I saw a convoy of more than 20 police cars entering, moving over to Boya. That is state budget as we're talking about here. They need to be catered for. While they finish, others come out. At the end, we don't have roads. We don't have hospitals. We need many things. Water, there are areas water is not even flowing. This is budget that has been diverted to a senseless war that would have been avoided if those in the system had what it takes. So at the end of it, Mr. Leo, I think that while we're wrapping up on these issues, we're talking about whether concession or other like, the state to solve this problem, because you don't expect the armed fighters to come and tell the state that we're solving it this way.
Yeah, but
the state takes the lead.
Yes, you say the state should take the lead, but
and the proper way.
Yes, the proper way.
Which the state has refused to do that.
Yeah, but you've said nothing to the armed fighters, the separatist leaders.
No, for the armed fighters, I've said we're working on what we call an unconventional war. Now, you will not expect somebody who has not gone to school. You will not expect probably somebody who doesn't understand the ethics of war.
Are you saying General Arcade did not?
No, I am coming. If you look at the proportion of those who are in the bushes,
General Ayeke was.
No, they are there.
This is
the issue I'm talking about here.
Yes.
If you look at the proportion of those who are in the bushes, compared to those who are in the military, there are two different facets of people. And what am I saying? Because it's a guerrilla warfare, the few who are there, because if you look at the Amber General, yes, I'm getting you.
This, if you want, you talked about the major national dialogue,
yes,
and you said that separatist leaders were supposed to be invited. You did not say separatists, the fighters were supposed to be invited. You said that the leaders in the likes of Ayaba Cho Lucas, Chris Anu, and the likes were supposed to be in Yaoundé. But you're not talking about them. You are talking about people who have not gone to school. Are you telling me that these separatists, the leaders out there, they did not go to school?
This is where the issue comes from, Mr. Leo. The war is operating on two fronts. There are the leaders in the diaspora who have gone to school, and the leaders who don't have control over those who are in the bushes. We must accept that. There are many in the bushes who are like dropouts, or people who became frustrated because they could not go to school, or some went to school halfway, did not go out of frustration, they went into the bushes. Now, we must bear this truth. The connection between the leaders, that's why I said that in the conflict, you will not call leaders, in the first stage of the conflict, leaders are important. But as you take stage 3, stage 4, you get to a point where the various factions are supposed to be joining as you move on. So in this case, we must understand that there are a greater faction in the bushes, those who are co-opted, who have not understood the ethics of war.
So the guys in the diaspora should be ignored?
No, you're not getting what I'm saying. I'm saying they are in stages.
Okay.
You start the first stage in conversation is that you meet the principal actors, meaning those in the diaspora and those in prison. The next stage is that you start seeing the other factions that are included. The next stage is that you start getting now the other commander units who are on the ground. So it goes stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's how you solve the conflict. But the moment you refuse those stages, you'll be dangling in the air.
Yes. How do we get stakeholders interested or more committed to solving this problem? We have talked about the traditional rulers, the elites, political and administrative elites of the southwest and northwest regions. How do they engage these separatist fighters and the government? We are looking at other means away from what was arrived at the major national dialogue.
Mr. Leo, you see, one thing is for sure is that the state has money. In spite of all their debts they have around the world with the IMF or the World Bank. But the Cameroon government has money. Cameroonians have money. The country is a blessed country. The government can keep the war even for 20 years. They got resources. They got the means. Because I have said that it is in their interest whereby that assimilation which seemed to be a failure seemed to be actually working now due to this crisis. It absolutely is working in the advantage of those that want to assimilate so that the country becomes that unified Cameroon as they have always dreamt. This is what we are seeing today. So for me, there are very few or more stakeholders that I cannot actually point in Cameroon that are able to resolve this problem, not even at the level of the separatist fighters. this conflict is bigger and it's out of hands. It's not at the level anymore of Cameroonians. Cameroonians cannot solve this problem. Why do I say so? It's because we have come to a reality that it is not only just about the Northwest and Southwest, but Cameroon as a whole has a crisis, Mr.
Yeah, but if you say Cameroonians cannot solve it, and you also do not believe in the international community, should angels come from heaven to sort it out?
Yes, I was going to say a way, in my understanding, that this problem could be resolved. You see, when people have mixed concept of what their problem is, it makes the solution becomes a very far-fetched one. A close example will be Mali today, will be Rwanda. Kagame said that it was a Rwandese who decided to build their nations. That is where Cameroonians need to be going to.
Yeah, but how do we get there?
We need to be able to, that is why I said before of the 1960 policy and the 1961 policy. We are a colony, we cannot refuse that. And we cannot make the kind of change that can bring a lasting peace in Cameroon as long as we remain a colony. We must be able to own that sovereignty where we have right over our political structure and our economical structure. Out of that, Mr. Leo, we will talk all at the end of the day. Yes. For all the kind of dialogues and stakeholders.
That said, how do we get what you are saying?
Now I will say that it will have to do at the level of the youth population that makes the majority today in Cameroon, to be able to realize that we have been failed by the level of those who assume responsibility and are not acting on their responsibility.
Okay.
Because sometimes when we say, but why do we always blame the West? If you own a responsibility, or you say, I'm responsible for this, and you don't act upon that responsibility, why should you not be blamed? How should they so now it should be a joint effort, and it should be a kind of nationwide protest whereby that is a simple truth, Mr. Leo, because at the end of the day, you want to go back to the ballot box, it doesn't work.
Okay.
You want to pick up arms, at the end of the day, you lose people. But you look at what happened today in Mali, nobody died in that coup in Mali that ousted Keita's administration.
Yeah,
nobody died.
Because the military came in favor of the
people.
Because
the military saw that it was not an opposition party that went out. If you take an opposition party to go out in Cameroon today, they crack you down. But if the population of the Cameroonians themselves decide, and 10 million Cameroonians go to the street, or 50 million Cameroonians go to the street, there will be change in Cameroon.
Yes.
Even France will not have right to talk anymore in Cameroon.
There will be change in Cameroon.
Yes, that is a simple truth.
Prince Joel, I want us to look at the role that the civil society has played, either in promoting the war or finding a lasting solution to it. Are you very comfortable with the posture that has been taken by the civil society? This far, we've seen many NGOs very vocal, fighting for nature, fighting to ensure that they intervene in the domain of health. Do you think they have done enough to also advocate for peace to return, and are very active, engaging both government and separatists to solve this problem? And if yes, okay, what should be the way for them to move on to engaging all stakeholders to finding a lasting solution to the problem?
Sure, Mr. Liu. I think before I come to that, I want to react a bit to what Mr. Ibako said. You know,
okay.
all through his intervention, as a Pan-Africanist that he is, I understand his stance. But I want to believe that once your house is on fire, you do not chase rats. Cameroon has a more pressing problem. It's true that the whole of Africa, let us be honest, that most countries that had France, either as a colonial master, neo-colonialism has always been the ball game. Till date, you cannot take it away. It's the same problem in Cote d'Ivoire. It's the same problem nearly all over. But now, the issue is, like you asked him, do we abandon our own problems because we are waiting an official liberation from the hands of the imperialists? That's one is to be difficult. You do not expect, look at all countries that had their independence. One of the reasons that Ghana had independence first was because Ghana was not under a French colony. or rather Ghana was not a French colony. And most countries in Africa that have had France as colonial masters, take it or leave it, France has its hands on them. After the major national dialogue, the president went to France to give records. We've seen that. When the president of Fcfa's political party was released, Emmanuel Macron said, j'ai dit à monsieur bien délibéré come to. So when you look at it globally, Mr. Leo, it means that Africa will not be emancipated now. Most of those who brought up the ideas, look at the founding fathers of negritude. Look at those who brought the idea of the black race, the black man. They fought. Where did they end? Since the white man is the one who gives us, who decides how Africa functions, it's a very good dream he has, like most Pan-Africanists. But the question is, it's not a dream that may be realized in the next 30, 40, 50 years. It's going to take a lot of time. Now, to your question, Mr. Liu, I think that civil society is very true that we've seen a majority of them that have come up to call on the government to end the crisis. We've seen a majority who have condemned what is ongoing in the Northwest and the Southwest, the beheading of a teacher. Remember that one time, people in Bamenda, it should be around Sona Street or in Quen, got up in the morning only to see the head of a teacher. We know of the way Ayafo was killed, and it's not the first. So many persons have been killed already, and the civil society, Mr. Leo, I will say that I appreciate a majority of them, because each time these actions come up, we've seen them coming up to decry. There's a lady he called before now, Edith Kabangwala, that is under the standard for Cameroon. We know that not once, not twice, there are days they get up, they say today is Friday for black. And when they wear this black, they say, okay, we want to like sympathize with, there's so many souls have been killed in the Northwest and the Southwest. And this group or these societies, these civil societies, have never stopped calling on the regime. Because Mr. Leo, like Fcfa said, let us take it or leave it. The ball game out of the Anglophone crisis is the regime. There's no doubt. It's the government. It's the government. Mm-hmm. And whether the separatists invite them or not, if the government wants to solve, who would have told you that people like Sos and Congo will be in Yaoundé today? These are persons who were very hard at the beginning of the crisis. But today we see them whining and dining with the government. So it tells you that the government can get any person they want at any time. Who would have told you that Sisiko Ayuktabek and the others, the Nera tender, the meeting they held in Nigeria, the government could, that the government had information about that meeting, did not only take them away from Nigeria, but they are currently saving life terms of imprisonment. So it tells you that, Mr. Leo, if the government wants to solve this crisis, irrespective of what the civil society is doing, because what they are doing is just to create awareness, because, Mr. Leo, when this thing started, the crisis started, like I said before, there are a lot of persons who are feeding fat inside. There are so many civil societies that were created, NGOs after this, whose objective is to seek international recognition, whose objective is to let the government know that we are also assisting, and at one time, money is doled out to these societies. And what is the effect? We're not seeing the effect, because the effect should be, let us have effective school resumption in the Northwest and the Southwest. The effect should be, let us not get up and hear that somebody has died again. The effect should be that we should not be talking about separation or this again. Let us have people who already have one mindset. In as much as we don't have this thing, we will say to an extent that this civil society are not getting the desired result. Because the objective is, let the killings end. If killings are still continuing, then they are not doing what is normally being expected of them. And I want to still say again that, Mr. Leo, there is one person who has a yam on the knife.
The president
is the president of the republic and is the government.
Okay.
Mr. Leo, federalism is not a taboo subject. Padia Sanga Road, whom I'm sure is watching, his idea is federalism. The Social Democratic Front also federalism. I don't know the stance of the CRM, but most political parties are talking of federalism. And it's not a taboo subject. Decentralization is not a cousin to federalism. Neither are they brothers. It's a different terminology. But if the president, during a major national dialogue, or not even during a major national dialogue, what will we cause the president to say we're going back to a federal state? If he changed Cameroon from a unitary state in 1984, What stops him in 2020 via a presidential decree to say Cameroon is going back to a federal republic?
Okay, let me take some of these messages. Good evening. Good evening to all of you in the studio. This is Mr. Ngwe Divine from Boya, popularly known as DM. I love your program. This struggle cannot end because the government does not want it to end. Okay. Hello, Mr. Leo. This program is good. Please, the crisis have turned into a game whereby both parties need an interest. All these debates and programs are a waste of time. To me, the former UN Secretary General, late Mr. Kofi Annan, once said there is never a winner after a war. This is because all the actors are losers. Our leaders should put down their ego and pride, reconcile with the separatist fighters, then we truthfully invite God Almighty to give a lasting solution to this problem. Kinney and Tony writing, France should be chased away from Cameroon because she has contributed 99.9% to the crisis. If we chase France away, Cameroon will be the best country in Africa. Daniel is writing from Limbe. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I think the only solution to this problem is for Cameroonians to stand up for Cameroon. CRM and Edith Kawala remains the only parties that still have the vision for the way forward. Matthias, writing from Bomenda. Good evening, Mr. Kum. The panelist beside you who said that the UN is not UN coming here is very right. We should stop starting from the top to understand that our problem those who colonize us, forgetting that we had before their arrival our own African ways of doing things. We are the ones to be blamed for differentiating ourselves as Anglophones and Francophones, leading us to what we are facing today. To stop this, we should consider ourselves like one. Foncha and others were not fools to join us as one. Leo is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm Philo from Douala. I like your show. Mr. Tayon Elvis should always partake in the show. Reasons he talks with facts, even a layman will understand. Okay, Mr. Tayon, hope you got that. Greetings to you, Mr. Leo. I'm Raul from Bangam. I love your show. Our aim is for this crisis to end, but the bodies the government want to use to end this crisis are the same people who are provoking the crisis, for example. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the crew. Please, your program is very impressive. I wish the leaders that do watch this type of marvelous programs of yours. So please keep on. God bless you guys. Elvis is writing from Ginicom. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Santi Seidu from Tumbo. This crisis is too much. We wish it to end. The state has taken the crisis to be priority. The key and the lock is with the state, and they know how to open the lock to end this crisis. Okay, he says, funny leaders. This one says, hi to the kangaroo man. He's gotten your greetings. Good evening, my dear brothers in the studio. This is Reverend Joseph Obi. The solution or the end of the crisis in the southwest and northwest can be very possible if the government and the separatists can invite men of God, pastors, apostles, and bishops from all the 10 regions for a 3-day prayers. This one says, I want to say all these commissions only nurture hate and anger, and this I say are a time bomb for tomorrow. These commissions only store the war. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. In the issue, I think the government does not want the southwest and northwest crisis to start because the way the armies are molesting the population, especially bike riders, control every corner. Cindy writing from Kumba. We are going to end here. Can't read all the messages. We were supposed to discuss about the situation of the ban on bike riders in Bomenda, but tomorrow we are going to be looking at it, and then we also tomorrow are going to be discussing about our brothers and sisters who have been deported from America. They landed today at the Douala International Airport. We are going to be looking at the implications and possible reasons for their repatriation. We equally are going to discuss about the situation of the tax levied on tablets and phones by the government of Cameroon. We are going to be discussing that with our panelists who are going to be here for tomorrow's edition. We want to say thank you to you, Fa Elvis Tayong, for coming and talking to our televiewers this evening.
Yes, thank you very much. As I said, we'll continue to do the role as a whistleblower of good things and to shun corruptions as in all the domains and to ensure that all lives matter, as I said. And as a result of that, I think the crisis itself is something which any normal human being would like it to come to an end. But as I said earlier, with the ongoing investigation we're carrying, and as I said earlier, tomorrow will be at the level of the regional delegations to still tell us what is transpiring over there in Penja, because as I said earlier, it's just part of the issues. As you said, we have another program to talk on that. But it's just one of the investigations we are carrying out to let people know that if an institution is illegal or other things, people don't even know that GC leaked somewhere around. It's the revelations are coming out very terribly. And things transpire, money transpire around Penja, and the whole shit died down. When we come to that, we'll tell you how we get things surprisingly, and you hear that our problem is let things be done the right way, so that we get to more people, Cameroonians, in the right way, and not in the aspect of corruption as we find within the school milieu. Thank you very much.
Okay, we equally want to say thank you to you, Prince Joel, for coming.
Mr. Lou, it's always a privilege being on board. Like I used to say, everybody mustn't do the same thing at the same time. We chose the microphone. I always feel that with the microphone we can shape opinions. The Anglophone crisis, its devastation has been enormous. It is time it comes to an end. A special good evening to Mr. Molutekwi Desmond Wash from Bamenda.
Also, thank you to you, Andrin Atem Ebako.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumyo, and thank you all the viewers of my media prime. This is 60 years that Cameroon is still putting on the diaper which was given to him by the colonial master. The question remains is, are Cameroonians willing to remove the diaper, or do they still want to keep the diaper? So I feel that until Cameroonians decide to come together, France and any other international community will have no say in Cameroon. Therefore means Cameroonians will be able to put in a government that will defend the rights of Cameroonians. But as far as it is under the context of the diaper which the colonial master has put on us since 60 years ago, know that any opposition parties that comes up, the government will always use the military which is employed by that government to crack down the opposition party. Okay. Cameroonians must come together and forget about opposition party, forget about the electoral processes, because they don't work. Even in 2000, Mr. Liu, I just want to say this lastly, even in 2000 when George Bush took over power, he stole 400,000 votes. He disappeared. People did not know where he went to. So democracy does not work for no place. So that is my position for Cameroonians. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, Andrin Atemebako. To remind our televiewers that tomorrow on Prime Hour 7 p.m. we are going to be discussing the situations of our brothers and sisters who were deported from America this day. They arrived at the Douala International Airport. Today, we will look at the implications for that action. We equally are going to be looking at the situation of the Bamenda city dwellers without bikes in town. How are they coping? And also looking at the situations of the bike riders. We also are briefly going to be talking about the situation that Cameroonians in the days ahead going to be faced with paying the tax on phones and tablets. We want to thank the production team for today's edition of the program. Eli, Desmond and Paul, we say thank you. And to those at the broadcasting, we equally want to say thank you to you, Tabi, Tambe Bryant, who is supervising our work out here. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.